Hey everyone, Tidman here, and we've got a big patch for Dota Underlords, including a lot of balance changes and some other cool new features. So let's get right into it. The update in which night is day. I love the little puns that they put in all of their titles. So in the first section here, we've got the general things, fixing some crashes, fixing some bugs, and some UI issues. There's really nothing too impactful in this section. Sometimes they hide a little gem of important gameplay information, but nothing that was too important here to talk about. So let's move on to the Duos ranked matchmaking system. So we've had Duo mode out for a few weeks now, and we've it hasn't maybe caught on quite as much. I personally haven't played a ton of duos. I know there's been some duo tournaments, but with no ranked mode, I know a lot of people have kind of opted to just play what the ranked mode is instead. But now you can play ranked in duos. So the way duos ranked is going to work is you're going to play a duos match with a friend, and it will create a duos team. Once you play 3 games with your team, then with the same partner, you can then name your team after 3 matches, and you can also then rename it after 3 more matches, as many times as you want if you have regrets. And the number of matches played will track by the team. So you may be the best individual player, but your team will be ranked on the leaderboard. And if you play with multiple players and you both want to rank up as a team, then you can have like multiple ranks of your duo ranked. So it'll be by the team. And if you don't want to play with a constant duo partner, you can also play in casual mode with a bot partner, and they'll respond to your requests, and you can request from them. And of course, they want you to be nice to your bot teammate. But if you are playing ranked mode, there is the ranked duos matchmaking queue, and progress in this mode counts towards your solo rank up to the big boss level. So if you are, I don't know if this includes big boss or if it means it stops at like boss 5/big boss 1, or if it means it stops at Lord. But in any case, so some of this progress from playing ranked mode in duo mode will also rank you up in solos, because obviously if you're able to win consistently in duos, that means you probably could win in solos as well. So you get some rank progress there, so it doesn't kind of stifle you down and you just don't feel like you have enough time to rank up. And of course, each duos has their own team rank. All right, let's take a look at the other balance changes. So they changed both the Underlords and a lot of the heroes as well. So Anesix, this is a big wall of text of numbers, but the general gist of it is that Anesix and both Hobgen, their maximum health has been buffed. So both Underlords, their health total is just a little bit low after the kind of rebalancing. So whenever they changed the Underlords such that they don't scale up based on your player level anymore, the general consensus was that they were a little bit squishy, a little bit on the weaker end in terms of health total. So they increased the health totals like 150 at level 2 from 1350 to 1500, 300 at 3, and so on up along the way. But on the flip side, Anesix has had her Demon Archer, her little companion that is baseline to her, and has been nerfed rather substantially. The attack damage minimum went from 50 down to 30, and then the maximum from 60 down to 36. So really went from like 55 damage per second at the lowest rank to 33. So that's a rather substantial nerf. And then even that's in the early game. Come the mid game, say at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like the 5th level, it went from 110 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 60. Eesh. Yeah, that is definitely a rather substantial decrease. So she was not going to be dealing nearly as much auto attack damage from the Demon Archer, which is totally fair because really her damage was competitive with Hobgen at most points in the game, just because this Demon Archer was hitting so incredibly hard, not to mention the Chaotic Hunter talent. So maybe this is going to put a higher priority on Brill Bruiser to deal out a lot of damage from that, or the other talents in that level 10 talent tree. But in any case, a nerf to Anesix should hopefully bring up Hobgen. So on the flip side, Hobgen has found some buffs, has actually nerfed the health total at the first level, but then afterwards has gotten buffs on the health total. So essentially by the time you get into the main part of the game, Hobgen is going to be buffed, having more health total just like Anesix does. Good to note that he actually starts with higher health total because he doesn't have a demon companion to help him out. His attack damage has also been increased. The minimum damage has been brought up rather dramatically at early levels from 48 to 74, 60 to 86, but then by the time you get to the mid game, say like the 5th level in, as it goes from 96 up to 122, I guess that's still a rather substantial buff. So still looking looking like a good attack damage bonus to Hobgen. Now, of course, a lot of Hobgen's damage comes from his burn ability and his Explosivo, so this isn't the most dramatic thing in the world, but it does help to make something like a Hot Rod talent, which also got buffed down here, a little bit more appealing because he's going to be hitting a little bit harder with his auto attack. So Hot Rod got buffed. Attack speed bonus per level is changed from 10 to 15, so he's going to be attacking even faster with the Hot Rod. And Fire Break has been nerfed ever so slightly. This was kind of the default pick in the tier 10 talents, or round 10 talents. So the damage reduction has been changed from 45 down to 40. And then Melting Point, one of the later game options that was just so rarely picked up, the armor loss per second has changed from 0.5 up to 1. So you're going to be able to burn through people's armor a little bit more effectively. I still think this is really low impact, but I'll have to try it out exactly to see how it works, because it does shred armor relatively efficiently now. Especially if you can keep individual targets on fire for a long period of time, they're going to shred a lot of armor. Such as if Hobgen's attacking one guy up front, for instance. Okay, on to the hero changes. So Anti-Mage, maximum health has been changed from 1 to 4,000, or 1,000, 2,000, 4,000, to 1,000, 1,800, 4,000. That's interesting. Anti-Mage has been nerfed at 2-star. I definitely don't agree with that. I think Anti-Mage and Bounty Hunter, who also kind of received the same treatment, has nerfed at 2-star. Their health total, they're already pretty weak at 2-star, certainly compared to other tier 1 units such as Tiny, Tusk, Ogre Magi. I guess those units are intended to be more tanky, but I don't feel like the 2-star Bounty Hunter and Anti-Mage really were that egregious of offenders. We actually see a couple more Assassin changes further down in the patch notes, just as an overall nerf to Assassin, so I guess they kind of got caught up in that nerf, but I don't think Anti-Mage and Bounty Hunter were the big offenders here, so maybe they were kind of unjustly nerfed, and maybe they're a little bit substantially weaker than they should be now in the early game at 2-star. Chaos Knight has been buffed. Maximum mana has been reduced from 100 down to 75, so he will now cast his Chaos Bolt at 75 mana rather than 100, so he casts it a little bit quicker. And the minimum damage has been increased rather dramatically. The minimum damage goes up from 50 to 100, and then 100 to 150, and so on. So 50 bonus damage on that cast every time. And the minimum stun duration will now scale with his level. So if you get a 2-star Chaos Knight, it's going to stun for at least 2 seconds. And if you get a 3-star Chaos Knight, it's going to stun for at least 3 seconds instead of just a minimum of 1 second. So a nice little buff to Chaos Knight, who I thought was a pretty good unit already in the early game, but I know Knights as a whole needed a buff, and Chaos Knight was just kind of a good unit for his own right, but didn't really fit into any kind of bigger strategy, so seeing a buff to him is, I think, perfectly acceptable. But you should definitely be picking up Chaos Knight whenever you get the chance, because he's going to be a good force in the early game, especially at 2-star. Dragon Knight, his Breathe Fire has been slightly nerfed at 50 damage at 1-star and 100 damage at 2-star. So it goes from 350 down to 250. So this is a rather substantial nerf to any kind of Dragon Knight builds, which I think is fair. Dragon Knight was popping up in a little too many places, popping up in Mage builds with the Mage bonus, with Warriors, with Viper, and just all kinds of different combinations. So not to mention Knights builds. So seeing him taking down just a touch and maybe focusing a bit more on his auto attack rather than a big massive Breathe Fire AoE, I still think he's going to be very viable and very strong, just not quite as oppressive, especially in Mage compositions. Faceless Void once again gets another nerf, especially at 2-star. I guess only at 2-star. It seems that this is the common thread for Assassins being nerfed at 2-star. And that basically comes as a response to the fact that Assassins felt way too tanky, especially Faceless Void, for the amount of damage output and utility that they have. So it seems like across the board, Assassins are getting nerfed at 2-star. Juggernaut received some moderate buffs. Attack rate has been increased from 0.9 up to 1.0, and so a little moderate increase at 1 and 2-star attack rate. And then in kind of contrast to Assassins is gaining health at 2-star, and 1 and 3-star are unaffected. And then the attack damage has also been increased at 2-star as well by about 15. So much scarier to face a 2-star Juggernaut now with higher attack rate plus higher damage plus higher health. So just all around Juggernaut is a much numerically better unit at 2-star. Legion Commander. Legion Commander has been reworked to an extent. This reads as nerfs. Armor changed from 10 to 5. Maximum health decreased from 1,000, 2,000, 4,800 to 900, 1,800, 3,600. And attack damage minimum has been reduced. Attack damage maximum has been reduced. But these go hand in hand with Legion Commander changes down below. Let's skip ahead to that really quick. And in the Alliance change, the champion bonus, which Legion Commander has, now grants 10% bonus damage and maximum health per alliance affecting the champion, excluding the champion bonus itself, obviously. So, while she may be initially weaker, you pair up with a couple of alliances, and now she's stronger. You pair up with a bunch of alliances, and now she gets out of control. If you can affect like warriors, plus hunters, plus brownies, plus bloodbound, plus demon, that's 50% bonus attack and health on that. And I mean, yeah, that's a lot of units to put in, and you maybe don't get that until like level 8 or 9, but now your Legion Commander gets plus 50% bonus attack and max health. Obviously, her stats are initially nerfed a little bit, but, you know, they're nerfed by about 10%. So really, once you get 2 or 3 alliances, you're right back to break even on that, and then it just starts scaling up more and more from there. So really, a buff to Legion Commander, and really encourages you to play it in this, you know, a diverse strategy to go into a bunch of different alliances that affect her. I will say a note, this does not affect, or like the counting on the champion alliance does not count Heartless bonus, it does not count mages, and does not count insects, because those are alliances that affect the opponent and doesn't affect you, or doesn't affect the Legion Commander. They are, insects obviously spawn from the board, Heartless and Mage are debuffs on the enemy, whereas every other alliance in the game will affect your Legion Commander, and so those are the only ones that don't count towards the champion alliance. So don't try to play her in mages. I don't know why you would. You can run Heartless with her. It's still fine, but it doesn't buff her by that 10%. And you can also run insects, although that's a little bit weird to try to fit Legion Commander into an insect build. So probably just mainly affecting the Heartless bonus, but otherwise, awesome rework. I love this change. I'm really, really excited to play more Legion Commander. I know I just had a good Legion Commander game posted, and if I had this rework, it probably would have been even better. So really excited to see this change. I really love it. Luna, attack damage minimum changed from, actually just buffed at 2-star. So going up from 100 and 120 to 120 to 144. So about a 20% bonus, roughly speaking, to her attack damage, or I guess it was 110 up to 130. I guess that's not 132. Maybe not. It's about a 10% bonus, I guess. Wait, does that math work? Minimum. It used to be 110, 130. Okay, so yeah, it goes up by about 20 damage. Sorry. So she has about 22 more damage at rank 2. So kind of like Juggernaut, just a little bit scarier in that mid game. And that was something that I think is really good for Knights. Knights' big problem was that kind of mid game power trough. The Chaos Knight and Luna were good-ish until people started getting level 6 and 7. And then they got really tanky, and the NSX heals started ramping up, and Luna just felt like she didn't really compete. So a little bit of a buff to her at 2-star is probably appropriate here, so that she can kind of keep pace in that mid-game fight. Morphling, maximum mana has been changed from 100 down to 75. He was already at 75. Or did I miss something? I'm pretty sure he was already at 75 mana. Maybe I'm wrong, but there was definitely a time when Morphling was already at 75 mana. Maybe when they reverted him to a mage, he went back up to 100, and I don't recall. But in any case, Morphling's going to cast at 75 mana now. But that cast has been rather substantially nerfed. His maximum health has increased to kind of compensate, but the damage output from the waveform is really far down. It goes from 200 damage down to 100, 350 at 2-star down to 175. It gets cut in half. Yikes. If you manage to get him up to 3-star, he's still going to be just as strong. Actually, stronger than before because of the mana cost difference. But feels really bad to try to play a 2-star Morphling now. That being said, I think that's a fair nerf. I think it's a lot. I think it's a lot, but Morphling was like a little bit too powerful. I think whenever he was 2-cost, he was he had lower numbers, but he had higher than this. I think he had 250 whenever he was at a 2-cost unit. So now at his 2-cost, his 2-star is even weaker than he used to be before he got slightly reworked. So I don't really know how to feel about this. On one hand, mages and primordials were really strong kind of like the go-to comp of this, of the most recent meta. So I'm not surprised to see it nerfed, but this seems like a lot, but maybe that's fair. So definitely put a lower priority on mages, and Morphling in particular in mages, unless you think you can get him up to 3-star, at which point he carries just as hard as before, and even harder, arguably, because of the mana change. Nyx Assassin, once again with the Assassin changes nerfed at 2-star, and once again, these one-cost Assassin, Nyx, Anti-Mage, Bounty Hunter, I don't think they were the big offenders. I think Phantom Assassin and Slark are receiving the same kind of treatment, so I think that's fair. But I think these one-cost units were kind of unfairly hit. Ogre Magi is now a brute, in addition to being a Bloodbound Mage, and this is my favorite, well, one of my favorite changes. I like the Legion Commander change the most, but my second favorite change of this patch is Ogre Magi is now a brute. And my favorite part about this is that I would always try to play Ogre Magi with like Magnus. Like that was a combo I liked a lot, because Ogre Magi gives you attack speed with his Bloodlust, and then Magnus gives you attack damage and cleave with Empower. And like it's just a match made in heaven, right? And you're just going to buff each other, and they're both going to deal massive attack damage, attack speed, and cleave. Awesome. Great combo, the big beefy frontliners. The problem is there was nothing to link the two together. There's no alliances in common. There was no like, oh, this is a brute who there's also a Bloodbound brute, or, you know, from Magnus's perspective, or Ogre's a mage and there's also a shaman mage and you can do shamans. There just was no overlap between the two. So it was really hard to fit them in the same composition outside of the very early game. And so now with Ogre Magi, being a brute, he's going to fit right into the brute's composition. He makes perfect sense as a brute. I don't know why he wasn't a brute initially. And yeah, it's going to be great trying to pair him up with Magnus, see if that kind of build can get off the ground. I would really look forward to seeing that. All right, Omni Knight. Maximum mana has been changed from 100 down to 60, so he casts it very quickly. Kind of like the difference between Puck, who's at 100 down to 60. Maximum health has been increased across the board by about 10 or 15%, something like that. And then Purification, these cooldown now scales from constantly 10 seconds, from 10, 8, 6 seconds as you rank them up, and of course the mana cost is cheaper. So I like this change a lot. One of my biggest complaints about Knights was, well, previously they kind of lacked damage in mid game, and I think they've addressed that with Luna buff and Chaos Knight buff. And then Omni Knight now being able to cast a spell a little bit more quickly, a little bit more consistently, should help with a situation where he's just kind of standing there. If he wasn't taking damage, he was just hitting people with his hammer, wasn't gaining mana all that quickly, and then somebody would already be dead before he even thought about casting Purification. So now with this mana change, he should be casting it much more frequently, much more early in the fight to hopefully save units before they die. So I love this change. I think Knights combined with the Chaos Knight and Luna change are going to be much more potent in that mid game as they try to get into the late game with the 3-star Knights. Obviously, they're still going to want 3-star Luna and Chaos Knight to really carry the late game, but they have a little bit better of a bridge to get there. And now 3-star Omni Knight's going to be really impressive with a 6-second cooldown on this thing. All right, Phantom Assassin, also, nerfed it at 2-star, just like we said before. I think this one is fair. She was definitely really the strongest. Her and Slark, really strong, so fair to see that one. Pudge has been nerfed at 3-star again, so Pudge's 11k HP was way too much and has been brought down to 9,350. So Pudge is still very strong at 1 and 2-star, no changes there. Obviously, he's been repeatedly nerfed to the Heartless buff, the Warrior buff, the cooldown on his ability. He's been nerfed over and over again. Now he gets nerfed again at 3-star. So maybe put a lower priority on 3-star Pudge, but already getting 3-star Pudge was really hard to do anyway because everyone's trying to play him. So functionally, I don't think this changes too terribly much. Queen of Pain, same assassin spiel. Again, maximum health at 2-star decreased. Sand King, fixed Caustic Finale going off after every attack. So this was part of what made Sand King really, really strong, was that his Caustic Finale, that extra bonus burst of magic damage, would happen way too often. So this is actually a overall nerf to Sand King. It's kind of coded as a bug fix though. So still, I think Sand King is probably going to be the pick if you're looking for an insect to complete your insect alliance, more so than Broodmother, for instance, because of the AoE stun is still very effective, and Caustic Finale is still a good ability. Shadow Fiend, the attack damage minimum has been buffed up, and so it's maximum by about 10%. So he deals about 10% more auto attack damage. But then also Requiem of Souls max projectile width has been changed from 256 to 425. Now that seems really weird, and you probably don't know what that means. But essentially what this means is that units who are far away from Shadow Fiend are going to get hit by his projectiles when they normally wouldn't. So if you have units who are kind of at an odd angle to Shadow Fiend and it doesn't look like the projectiles hit the unit that's far away, they will now, because the projectiles are actually twice as big as they were before, roughly speaking. So you're going to be hitting units that are far away a lot more. So I think this brings Shadow Fiend back into the meta. Shadow Fiend used to have this projectile width, I believe, and he was just considered too overpowered. He was like pretty much got into every comp, especially mages. He was placed in pretty much everything because he would just hit everything with his abilities, and that led to him just being way too high on the damage charts, not to mention as a demon he was just really powerful. But changes to the meta have pretty much put him as like the worst unit in the game right now, among the worst, among the lowest tier, just because of the way he lacked damage output, and there were better demons that would just silence him, plus his long channel on his silence, or on his cast, would mean another one of the friendly demons would silence him. It was a mess. So I think these buffs are totally fair, but I think this catapults him from like bottom tier to top tier really quick. So Shadow Fiend is like probably one of my picks, along with like Ogre Magi, as like new top tier units for this patch. So definitely pick Shadow Fiend highly. I think this is a very, very big buff to him, even though it kind of seems a little unassuming. I think Shadow Fiend is now a top tier unit, and I think that should be fun. We haven't had him be kind of in the meta in the top tier for quite a while. All right, Slark received the normal assassin treatment, minus about 10% health at 2-star, but also Essence Shift no longer reduces the attack speed and damage from the target. Slark will still gain the effect. Darn it. I loved Slark. I loved him. He was my favorite unit in the game, especially a 3-star Slark with Mask of Madness, but arguably he was pretty oppressive and really, really powerful when he got going at 3-star with a Mask of Madness, but was fairly lackluster earlier on in the game. And so we can kind of see what these changes are trying to do is retain the power in the late game, but nerf their early and mid game. And Essence Shift was kind of at its most impactful in that early and mid game, whenever you're stealing their attack damage and speed. Was really strong before a lot of the abilities really got online and people got really high star levels, and more ability damage was more important rather than auto attack damage. So this is a fair nerf to Slark. I think he was too strong, and I think he may still be too strong with Mask of Madness, but I think that may be a fault of Mask of Madness and not with Slark. So regardless, a fair nerf, but unfortunately I think all of these changes, especially with the Templar Assassin, the same kind of change. I think Assassins are definitely going to drop out of the top of the meta. I think they're going to be like relegated to a tier 2 strategy, maybe a low tier 2, where they can kind of work if you're uncontested, but far from a dominant force in the metagame anymore. With all of these consecutive changes, they just all got hit by a lot. So doesn't look great for our assassinating buddies. Weaver can no longer Shikuchi while silenced. I don't know why he ever could. I guess that was a bug. So fair enough. That was a bug fix. Awesome. And then other alliance changes. Obviously, we already covered Champion, but Heartless, the armor reduction has been nerfed. 4 Heartless has been nerfed. No, that was my favorite. I was running so many 4 Heartless comps recently, and so was everybody else. So fair. Everybody was running 4 Heartless comps. I guess that's the price we got to pay. It was too good at 10 armor shred. It's down to 8. Fine. It's acceptable, I guess. It's not quite as bad as nerfing from 5 to 3, even though it's still 2 armor difference. It's, if you already have 8 armor shred, that's still really substantial. So I still think 4 Heartless is going to be a good build after this. 4 Heartless is still probably going to be like a top tier build. It just won't be quite as oppressive. It won't be quite as dominant. Speaking of armor difference, Warrior, their 6 warriors has been nerfed as well as the 3 warriors. So, you know, now 6 warriors only grants 17 armor instead of 20. So armor across the board is being a little bit more consistent. You don't gain quite as much with warriors, and you don't shred quite as much with heartless. So I think that's a fair nerf. Once again, I guess this is another nerf to Pudge, right? Another warrior heartless nerf to Pudge, certainly at the tier 2 of these alliances. Insect Alliance has also been nerfed. The spawn rate of spiderlings has changed from changed to 3 every half second. That means it'll take 2 seconds to spawn the initial batch of 12. So if you clear out a bunch of spiderlings, they're not going to instantly respawn. They're going to spawn in every half second, which is still pretty fast, but it's not instant. And I think Insect was just like a really powerful buff, especially when paired with Assassins. And I think this gives a little bit more counterplay. The way to counterplay the Insect buff should be you clear out the insects, and then you have a little bit of a respite before they all start swarming back at you. But as it stands, it's like, you know, Beastmaster casts his Wild Axes, clears out all the insects, and then by time they come back to him and he catches the axes again, there's already insects swarming back in and attacking again. So it's like, you didn't really buy yourself all that much time with that change. So I'm glad to see a little bit more counterplay introduced to the Insect Alliance. We already discussed Champion Alliance, my favorite change ever in this patch notes. So really happy to see that. And then finally, last but not least, they nerfed 3-star Primordials. 3-star Eidolons, rather. The Eidolons made from 6 Primordials have been nerfed from 15 armor down to just 10. And fair, as I kind of discussed with Morphling, Primordial and Mages were definitely the dominant force of the current meta. They were one of, if not, like those and Assassins were like definitely the 2 top builds, with like 4 Heartless kind of close behind. So getting all of those hit ever so slightly is definitely going to be a big change. 15 to 10 armor, like, yeah, I mean, it's a nerf, but like, it doesn't kill them, it doesn't completely eliminate them. They still have tons of health total, and 10 armor is still pretty tanky. It's not 15 armor tanky, but it's still going to buy you a lot of time for your backline, as these Eidolons are tanking up an extra wave of hits from your opponents for your backline to cast another wave of spells or something like that. So I still think 6 Primordials is still a viable build, but definitely got taken down a notch or 2 in power level. So I love this patch. There's a couple questionable things, I think, but on the whole, I love it. You know, the rebalancing to an Essex and Hobgen, some of the nerfs to Assassins I think were unjustified, but overall, you know, Assassins were too good, so they're all nerfed. And Knights being brought up a little bit, as well as the Legion Commander rework. Oh, I love the Legion Commander rework. Can't wait to go try some awesome Legion Commander builds going forward. So let me know what you think. I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you all so very much for watching, and I will see you in some ranked duo modes. Don't forget about that part, the first part of this patch notes. Thanks for watching. See you next time.